We'll fix it. Okay.
Welcome to the Office on Violence Against Women pre-application call for the fiscal year 2019 Training and Technical Assistance Initiative solicitation. My name is Neelam Patel, and I am the OVW Team Lead for Training and Technical Assistance. Also on the webinar is Valerie Krazan, OVW Grant Financial Management Division Financial Analyst. It is not the intent, nor is there sufficient time, to go over every aspect of the solicitation. Therefore, this webinar will go over specific sections of the TA solicitation. All applicants are responsible for reviewing the solicitation in its entirety and the attachments the applicant submits in GRANTS.GOV. It will be useful for you to have a copy of the solicitation either printed or downloaded during this call, as we will be referring to specific sections of the solicitation and page numbers. Please note that OVW staff cannot provide any feedback pertaining to the quality of your application. OVW staff cannot provide information outside of that presented in the solicitation that would give an advantage or even the appearance of an advantage to an applicant. OVW staff is available throughout the open period to address any questions about the solicitation's application requirements. Please feel free to send all questions to ovw.techassistance@usdoj.gov. First item I will go over are the due dates. First, and most importantly, the application due date is April 11, 2019, no later than 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time through grants.gov. Please plan your submission accordingly so you do not miss the due date and time. I will discuss the submission process later in the presentation. Also, the letter of intent due date is Thursday, March 26, 2019. I will discuss the letter of intent later in the presentation. Finally, all applicants must obtain a Data Universal Number System, called DUNS for short, and register online with the System for Award Management, called SAM for short, as well as register with grants.gov as soon as possible if you anticipate submitting an application. And it is highly recommended you complete the registration no later than March 26, 2019. The primary purpose of the OVW Training Technical Assistance Initiative, called TA Initiative for short, is to provide direct training and technical assistance to existing and potential grantees and subgrantees to enhance and support their efforts to successfully implement projects supported by OVW grant funds. OVW TA is designated to build the national capacity of justice system professionals and victim services organizations to respond effectively to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking, and foster partnerships among organizations that have not traditionally worked together to address violence against women. OVW TA Initiative is not intended for applicants seeking funding to attend or host training technical assistance for their organization and community. So if you are looking for funding to provide your organization with training, this is not the solicitation you should be applying for funding. Additionally, OVW Technical Assistance Initiative is not intended for applicants whose goal is to provide local training and technical assistance, as well as training specifically for your community or state. Please note that proposed activities must serve one or more of the OVW grant programs and eligible entities and individuals to receive OVW grant funds. Please visit the OVW website to learn more about the OVW grant program. Next, I will move on to eligibility. On the cover and on page 13, it explains eligible applicants. Eligible applicants are national, tribal, statewide, or other nonprofit organizations with the capacity to provide training and technical assistance at the national level. In rare circumstances, institutions of higher education, state, local, or tribal governments or governmental agencies and local nonprofit organizations are eligible and must detail their demonstrated history of providing training technical assistance in their application. We are now going to move to the purpose area, covered on page 2 through 11. OVW has 3 distinct categories of training technical assistance: targeted, competitive comprehensive, and non-competitive comprehensive. Most of the purpose areas for fiscal 2019 are targeted purpose areas. And as explained in the solicitation, targeted purpose areas are intended to provide in-depth TA on a narrow topic within one or more of the crime areas. As stated in the solicitation, OVW may make multiple awards for a targeted purpose area or may determine not to make an award for a targeted purpose area if there are no applications that effectively meet the purpose area or if there are not sufficient funds to fully support the purpose area. Comprehensive TA are projects that promote the consistent delivery of TA for certain grant programs, professions, and core critical areas. Comprehensives are competed every 5 years. Applications proposing a competitive comprehensive area not listed in the solicitation will be removed from consideration. OVW makes only one award for each competitive comprehensive purpose area, or OVW may determine not to make an award for a purpose area if there are no applications that effectively meet the purpose area, or if there are not sufficient funds to fully support the purpose area. TA grants that are eligible for non-competitive comprehensive funding in 2019 to continue one of the non-competitive comprehensive projects listed on pages 10 and 11 will be contacted by OVW. Applications for non-competitive comprehensive purpose areas who are not a TA provider already funded for these purpose areas will be removed from consideration. Please note that OVW will support the targeted and comprehensive project identifying the purpose area section in the solicitation only. Applicants proposing to develop projects other than those listed in the solicitation will be removed from consideration. Additionally, please do not combine purpose areas to create a new purpose area. Respond to purpose area description content for which you are applying. It is the responsibility of the applicant to list the purpose area for which they apply on the summary data sheet. Please note there is not a limit to how many purpose areas an organization can apply for. However, applicants must clearly distinguish which purpose area they are applying for in each application and in the summary data sheet. OVW will not match submitted applications to the purpose area. Applicants must submit separate and distinct applications for each purpose area for which they are applying. So, for example, if you are an organization that is interested in applying for 5 different purpose areas, you must submit in GRANTS.GOV a separate application for each of the 5 purpose areas. The project period and the amount of funds for each purpose area is listed in the solicitation. Please do not exceed this amount or the project period. Out-of-scope activities are listed on pages 11. Please read this carefully. I do want to specifically mention that one of the out-of-scope activities is that direct victim services and intervention is unallowable under the OVWT initiative. Also, training technical assistance focused on a single state, region, or geographic community, unless specified in the purpose area, is considered out of scope. Page 13 lists the mandatory program requirements for the TA initiative. Please make sure your application includes the amount required in your budget for attending the OVW sponsored training. Please see the budget section for more information on the required amount. Also, all applicants must include a planning period for their proposed project, and the period of time for the planning of the project must be incorporated in the timeline in the what will be done section. The period of time for planning your project is at the applicant's discretion, and applicants should propose the period of time based on what the applicant deems is appropriate planning period for the proposed projects and activities. I'll now move to the types of applicants. Continuation applicants are either an applicant that has an existing TA award for the purpose area for which they are applied, or a recently closed TA award within the last 12 months for the purpose area for which they are applying for in 2019. New applicants are applicants that either never received OVW funding under the TA initiative, or current or past recipients of OVW TA funding that are applying for a purpose area for which they have not received funding for in the past. Next is the letter intent. Although not required, it is encouraged that applicants submit a letter of intent to OVW.textassistant@usdoj.gov by March 26, 2019. This will ensure that applicants are well positioned and successfully submit their applications by the deadline. Letters should state that the organization is registered and current with their SAM and GRANTS.GOV registration. This letter will not obligate potential applicants to submit an application, nor for interested applicants who do not submit a letter of intent, they are still eligible to apply. Moving on to the application requirements as stated on page 14. A complete application includes the summary data sheet, project narrative, budget worksheet and narrative, memorandum of understanding, which is MOU for short, and letters of support. Applications missing either the project narrative, budget, or MOU will be deemed as incomplete and not considered for funding. Please read the application criteria very carefully for each section and respond to the criteria requested in each section. Also, please follow the formatting technical system requirements as stated on page 18. Points may be deducted for applications that do not adhere to formatting requirements. The summary data sheet is explained on page 15. The summary data sheet is scored and is worth 5 points, but an application is not deemed incomplete if it is missing the summary data sheet. However, this document is important as it lists important information about the applicant. Specifically, applicants should list the purpose area for the application in the summary data sheet. List the number and the purpose area title, as well as the grant program you are targeting. And again, please visit the OVW website if you are unfamiliar with all of the OVW grant programs. The data summary data sheet should also list the title of your proposed project. Please use simple and clear project titles. Also, please list all your project partners in the summary data sheet and include the amount of funding that each partner will receive on the project. Additionally, the summary data sheet asks applicants to include 3 attachments: a list of current and pending OVW grants, a list of other federal grant programs for which the applicant currently receives funding or will be applying for funding in fiscal year 2019 to do similar work, and a list of current and pending non-federal grants to do the same work, which is a new requirement for fiscal year 2019. Please read over this section carefully of what to include and refer to the associate appendix for a sample chart for each requirement. The summary data sheet is not included in the page limit of the project narrative. So now to the project narrative, which is worth 65 points and consists of the purpose of the application, what will be done, and who will implement. Please note that applicants applying for a targeted purpose area are limited to 20 pages double-spaced for the project narrative, and competitive comprehensive and non-competitive comprehensive are limited to 25 pages double-spaced. For each section of the project narrative, applicants must respond to the criteria for each section, and projects should be responsive to the purpose area and the target audience. Also, please do not submit any supplemental attachments, like resumes or articles about your organization, that are to supplement the project narrative, and do not include photos or images in your project narrative. Again, please follow the font and spacing requirements if you are using a chart in your project narrative. For the what will be done section, you must provide a clear link between the proposed activities and the need that you have identified in the purpose of the application section. One question that we received is what types of delivery methods should an applicant propose in their project? The delivery methods applicants choose for their proposed project should be the ones that are best suited for the goals and objectives stated in the application and will be the most effective in providing TA and training to the grantees. So, for example, one applicant may be proposing mostly webinars or e-learnings for one purpose area, and then for another purpose area that they're applying for, maybe they're proposing a hybrid of in-person webinars along with on-site technical assistance. As stated in the criteria, applicants must explain why a particular delivery method is appropriate for that target audience or profession and for that proposed purpose area. as well as what is your experience with that delivery method. I also want to draw your attention to the criteria for this section on accessibility. All TA training must be responsive to individuals with disabilities. Individuals that are hard of hearing or deaf or are limited English proficient. Finally, as stated previously, a planning period is required in the project narrative. The timeline, which is included in the what will be done section, must be included in that project narrative and should not be a separate attachment. Moving on to the budget, which is worth 15 points. And as stated previously, each purpose area has a budget cap and a project period. Please note that the budget is not part of the 20 to 25 pages for the project narrative. Please make sure you're carefully considering the resources needed to successfully implement the proposed project, meaning you may determine you don't need all of the funding amount assigned to the budget cap in the purpose area to successfully implement the proposed project. As a reminder, OVW has the discretion to make awards for greater or lesser amounts than requested and to negotiate the scope of the work and budget prior to the award of the grant. Keep in mind that the cost in the budget should correlate with what the applicant is proposing, and there must be a clear link in the budget with the project narrative. For example, if your budget includes expenses for an in-person training, then the in-person training should be listed in the project narrative. Also, staffing. A person listed in the budget or a to-be-hired position should be discussed in the project narrative, and that the first time a person's name or that position is mentioned should not be in the budget. Furthermore, keep in mind that all applicants need to include funds to attend OVW-sponsored training events, even if you are an applicant in DC, as not all OVW meetings are in the DC area. Additionally, please be mindful that all applicants must make their training and TA accessible, which may include translation materials, interpreters, captioning, etc. Those expenses must be included in your budget. Additionally, please refer to the conference planning and expenditure limits if you're proposing in-person meetings and trainings. And please review this section very carefully when you are allocating costs to these activities. I will now move the webinar to Valerie.
Hi, Neelam. Thank you. As Neelam said, my name is Valerie Cruzen, and I work with the Grants Financial Management Division, also known as GFMD. The next couple of slides, we are going to focus on aspects of your application that relate to the documents that our financial team, GFMD, reviews. More specifically, we'll discuss some items that GFMD has identified from prior year applications that could help with expediting our review process. So for today, we're going to highlight certain aspects of the pre-award risk assessment and provide you a link to a detailed webinar on how to develop the budget that will be included in your application. The first things we'll highlight are the items identified in the summary data sheet, which is completed by all applicants. Specifically, two items we would like to discuss are the single audit response and the IRS three-step safe harbor procedure. OVW requests that all applicants provide a statement as to whether they have expended $750,000 or more in federal funds during their last fiscal year. If they have, then they indicate that and also specify the end date of their last fiscal year. However, GFMD is finding that applicants do not always include this information and leave out whether or not they have met the threshold or the end date of the last fiscal year is not included. Please ensure this question is answered in its entirety on the summary data sheet. Another item we would like to highlight from the solicitation is specifically for nonprofit organizations. If you use the IRS three-step safe harbor procedure to determine your executive's compensation, you must reference the additional information section that provides the required disclosure letter. We'd like to highlight that there are 4 parts of this disclosure letter that must be provided to OVW in order to comply with this requirement. The sample letter outlines all 4 parts of the disclosure, so please be sure to follow the sample and provide a response to each of the 4 pieces. The next item we would like to discuss are the financial accounting practices, which assist GFMD during their pre-award risk assessment review for all applications. Each applicant must prepare a response to all 10 questions, and each question has multiple parts. We've noticed from prior years that applicants do not always fully answer all the parts of the questions, which in turn requires GFMD to reach out to the applicant, which may delay recommendation. Some of the most common issues that we've encountered have been, for example, question number 2, the applicant indicates they do indeed have internal policies, but they don't provide a list of the topics covered in the policies and procedures. Another example of incomplete responses include question number 3, where the applicant does not provide a brief summary of the organization's process for tracking expenditures, and more specifically, whether or not it tracks budgeted versus actual expenditures. These are just a few examples. Please make sure you read each piece of the question and provide a full and comprehensive response. The next slide will quickly highlight some resources that are available to be used as you're creating the budget to be submitted with the application. Over the last year, GFMD has worked to develop a detailed webinar presentation on how to assist applicants in developing a budget to be submitted with their OVW applications. We want to help reduce any challenges you may face with the budget and make it clear what we look for when we review your budget. This webinar provides some insight as to what OVW financial staff considers during our review. Using the link provided, the webinar can be found under the Budget Information section on that page. Next up is the Uniform Guidance, which can be found at 2 CFR Part 200, as well as the DOJ Financial Guide and the program-specific solicitation. If you need assistance finding these resources, please contact the GFMD Help Desk. Which brings us to our next slide with our contact information. If you have any questions about the information we have just discussed, please feel free to contact the GFMD Help Desk at 888-514-8556 or by email at ovw.gfmd@usdoj.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Moving on to the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU. The MOU is worth 10 points and is not part of the 20 or 25 pages of the project narrative. Please read this section very carefully and begin work on this section as soon as possible. The MOU should connect the project narrative activities and the budget. Applicants should start the development of their MOU as soon as possible because of the signatures involved. OVW requires all applicants to enter into an MOU with key partners who will bring the necessary substantive expertise to the project. So start this document as soon as possible. Key project partners include any organization and or individual that will have a significant role in the development and or implementation of the proposed project, regardless if they are receiving financial compensation for their participation. Any partner that does receive funds is considered a key partner. Letters of support or letters of commitment will not be considered in place of an MOU. MOU should be signed and dated by the authorized representative of each proposed project partner agency and or the individual contractor or consultant. A question we have received in the past is, does an organization need to get the signature of an outside accountant that they will be paying for under the consultants category that works on their organization's book? The answer is no. The accountants are not an MOU partner. Also, applicants must only submit one MOU. Please do not submit multiple MOUs. All partners must sign this one MOU. Applicants can submit multiple signature pages. For example, if you have 8 partners, it may be difficult to get all 8 signatures on one page since you may be faxing and or scanning signatures back and forth. So maybe you have one signature per page, but please make sure all signatures are legible if scanning the signature pages. Applicants should have the names of all partners on each signature page so that each partner knows who all the other partners are on this project. There is no page limit for the MOU, but I do recommend do not go excessive with the MOU pages and include information that is not requested in the solicitation. For example, I've seen MOUs in recent years with 10 or more pages, but I've seen some that have gone over 30 pages, which doesn't include the signature pages. And the applicant still didn't respond to the criteria in the solicitation. So please remember, respond to the criteria requested. Letters of support are worth 5 points and must include at least one letter, but not more than 2 letters of support from a previous recipient of your training or TA. For any applicant that has never had an OVW TA grant before, you should include letters from recipients of any training or TA that you have provided in the past. Please make sure you provide the criteria in the solicitation for the letters of support to the organization and or individuals that will be writing your letters of support. The organization providing the recommendation of support must write the letter, not the applicant. Please note the applicant will not receive additional points for more letters of support. Other documents to submit with your application are the abstract, which is not scored and should be a short summary of your project. Also, please see page 20 for other required documents, such as the letter of non-supplanting. Please note that this year, continuation applicants for a purpose area are not required to submit a status of current project. So please do not submit a status of current project. Next is registration, which is on page 23. To ensure that all applicants have ample time to complete the registration process, applicants must obtain the DUNS number, register online with SAM, and with GRANTS.GOV immediately, but no later than March 26, 2019. Lack of registration or not renewing registration on SAM or GRANTS.GOV was the reason some past applicants were unable to submit their applications before the deadline. Failure to register in a timely manner or verify that your organization's registrations are active well before the submission of the application are not situations of experiencing unforeseeable technical issues to request a late submission. So now I will move to discussion of late submission requests, which is explained on pages 25 and 26. To make sure your organization submits the application on time and to anticipate any technology issues with uploading your application, you may want to avoid starting the submission of your application the day of the due date. Any applicant requesting a late submission must follow the instructions on pages 25 and 26 for late submission, which includes requests due to severe inclement weather or national disaster and technical difficulties beyond an applicant's reasonable control. Please contact OVW at the earliest possible date, but no later than 24 hours from the due date and time, and please note failure to begin the registration application submission in sufficient time or having the correct version of Adobe is not an acceptable reason for a late submission. So now I will move on to the discussion of the submission of your application. As I stated previously, again, please make sure your organization has the correct version of Adobe software installed on the computer that you will be submitting the application. Having the incorrect version of Adobe has been a reason why some applicants in the past have not been able to submit their application by the due date and time. In order to make your application in order to make sure your application is successfully submitted in GRANTS.GOV, it is recommended that applicants begin the submission process in GRANTS.GOV at least 48 hours prior to the deadline, not later than 24 hours from the end date and deadline. This is to make sure that you have enough time to address any errors in uploading your application. Also, if your organization is submitting applications for multiple purpose areas, please make sure the correct attachments are uploaded with each application. In the past, we have seen applicants submitting multiple applications for different purpose areas, and then they've uploaded the wrong attachments to the application. For example, they've uploaded the incorrect MOUs to the wrong application. OVW will not move the incorrect documents to the correct application. Now I'll move on to attaching your application in GRANTS.GOV. On page 29, there are a list of specific characters not to use in the titles of your attachments. Do not use any fancy characters to save your documents and upload them in GRANTS.GOV. This is an error many applicants encounter when applications get rejected in GRANTS.GOV. Also see page 29 when labeling your attachments. Label your documents simply, such as Fiscal Year 2019 OVW Project Narrative or Fiscal Year 2019 OVW Budget. And please make sure you do not upload attachments multiple times. many times we have seen applicants upload their project narrative or another attachment 2 or 3 times, sometimes more than 3. And going back to the labeling, if you're going to be uploading multiple applications, to make sure you distinguish in the title which application is for. So you might want to even say OVW project narrative purpose area and the number. As I've discussed previously, organizations can submit applications for multiple purpose areas. However, only one application per purpose area, and do not combine all your applications into one application in GRANTS.GOV. If you're applying for multiple purpose areas, as I've stated before, make sure you're uploading the correct documents to the correct application. And as I stated before as well, make sure you've labeled each of those documents accordingly for each purpose area. Again, OVW will not switch the documents if you've uploaded them to the wrong application. Therefore, it's your responsibility to properly label all your documents and upload them correctly. Please avoid submitting your application for a purpose area multiple times. In the past, we have seen applicants upload their application multiple times, sometimes as many as 10. If you upload duplicate applications, OVW will review the most recent system-validated version of the application that was received before the deadline. Additionally, please do not submit a test application to see if GRANTS.GOV works. Submitting a test application will be considered an application. Please make sure you contact GRANTS.GOV if you have technical issues. After you upload your application, whoever's email address is used for GRANTS.GOV as a point of contact, please make sure that person is constantly checking their email after the submission of the application to make sure there isn't any denial of their application in the uploading in GRANTS.GOV, such as a denial because of an unallowable character in the title of the document that was uploaded. One of the most frequent reasons for requests for late submission is because the individual whose email address is connected to the application is not checking their email on a regular basis and did not see the denial notice until after the deadline. If you need technical support with GRANTS.GOV, please contact them directly. OVW will not send notification that we received your application, and do not wait until the last day to begin the submission of your application. As final reminder, due date is Thursday, April 11, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Register for STAMP, DUNS, and GRANTS.GOV no later than March 26, 2019. Check your STAMP registration to make sure it's active and you have the correct login and password. Make sure your Adobe is up to date. And submit your letter of intent by March 26, 2019. Use simple titles in your attachments for GRANTS.GOV and don't use any unallowable characters. And definitely make sure whomever is the individual uploading the application and whose email address is used for GRANTS.GOV as the point of contact, that person is constantly checking their email to make sure there isn't any denial of their application in the uploading in GRANTS.GOV. And submit only one application per purpose area. Please avoid duplicate submissions of the same application. Please make sure you read the solicitation thoroughly and respond to the criteria in each section and specific to the purpose area you're applying for. Do not combine purpose areas and do not create a purpose area. Double check all attachments before uploading and label them accordingly. Start uploading at least 48 hours from the due date. Also answer questions in the appropriate section of the application. Limit your use of acronyms. Make sure at least spell them out the first time. Remember that the application is being reviewed for what you include in the application as you respond and how you respond to the criteria, and adhere to the page limit. Please email OVW Tech Assistance at usdoj.gov if you have any questions. Thank you for viewing the recorded pre-application webinar for Fiscal 2019 Training and Technical Assistance Initiative.